My name is Margaret Collins, and 3 weeks ago, I finally did something for myself. After 35 years of working in corporate insurance, I sold my shares, packed up my townhouse in Chicago, and bought a quiet lake house in northern Michigan. I wanted peace. Mornings with coffee and fog over the water, afternoons reading by the window, and evenings where silence hummed louder than city noise. For 72 hours, I had exactly that. On the fourth morning, as I was trimming the rose bushes near the porch, my phone buzzed. It was my son, Nathan. He never called before noon unless something was wrong. "Mom," he said, his tone rehearsed. "I was thinking, that lake house of yours sounds huge. Maybe we could spend the summer there? The kids would love the water." I smiled, imagining my grandkids chasing fireflies. "Of course, for a weekend." "Oh, no." He cut me off. "We'll stay for a while. The whole family needs a break." By whole family, he meant himself, his wife, her sister, their mother, 2 children, and a dog the size of a pony. They arrived 2 days later, horns blaring, trunks open, voices spilling out before the doors even shut. My quiet porch turned into a parking lot. That night, I found my suitcase moved to the small guest room, the one without windows. My son stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets, acting like it was nothing. "Mom, you don't mind, right?" he said. "We just thought it'd be better if the kids had the master bedroom. It's closer to the lake view." My jaw tightened. "My bedroom," I repeated slowly. He grinned. "It's our family house now. Mom, don't be difficult." That word, "our," hung in the air like smoke. When I went to bed that night, the lake outside was perfectly still, but my chest wasn't. I stared at the ceiling and thought about every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. By sunrise, I knew I'd had enough. They thought they'd moved into my peace. They had no idea they'd just walked into my plan. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of drawers slamming and laughter echoing down the hallway. The smell of bacon drifted under my door, mixed with something far less pleasant, the sharp tone of my daughter-in-law, Avery, giving orders. When I stepped out, my once quiet living room looked like a college dorm after move-in day. Boxes everywhere, beach toys on the couch, and my oriental rug rolled up in the corner because, as Avery explained, kids spill things. Nathan stood by the coffee machine like he owned it, wearing one of my late husband's old flannel shirts. "Morning, Mom," he said casually. "We're thinking of rearranging the furniture a bit, make it more family-friendly." "Family-friendly?" I repeated, staring at the antique bookshelf now pushed against the wall. "This is a family house. Mine." He smiled. That patronizing kind of smile children use when they think their parents have lost touch. "Relax, Mom. It's just temporary. You'll see. It'll be fun having everyone together again." Fun. That word used to mean something different when he was 5 and brought me dandelions from the yard. Now it meant noise, clutter, and control. By noon, the house had a new rhythm, one I didn't belong to. Avery and her sister filled the kitchen, shouting over a blender. The kids chased each other through the hallway with wet feet. Nathan spent half the day on his laptop at my dining table, talking loudly about property values and long-term investment potential. I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, pretending to read. Through the open window, I heard him say to his wife, "If we put the deed in my name, Mom won't have to worry about taxes when she's, older." The word older landed like a blade. That night, while they grilled steaks by the lake, I stood in the kitchen and wiped the same plate for 10 minutes, just listening. Avery's mother laughed about how lucky Nathan was to inherit such a beautiful place. Her sister chimed in. "You think she'll sign it over soon?" Nathan didn't correct them. He just shrugged. The rage was cold, not fiery. It didn't explode. It sank deep, hard, deliberate. Later, when everyone was outside watching the sunset, I slipped into the master bedroom. My bedspread smelled like Avery's perfume. On the dresser, the family photo that used to sit by my bedside, me, Nathan, and his father, was gone. In its place, a framed picture of Avery's family, smiling by some Florida resort. Something inside me settled. The kind of stillness that comes when you stop asking why people hurt you and start planning what to do about it. I went back to the porch. The lake shimmered under the orange sky. Nathan called out from the yard. "Mom, you okay?" I smiled. "Perfectly fine," I said. Just thinking. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked in strange ways with so many people inside. I made tea in the dark and stood by the window, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the water. I remembered the first time I'd taught Nathan how to swim, how he'd clung to me, terrified of sinking. I used to think that was love, that needing someone meant caring. Now I saw it for what it really was, dependence disguised as affection. By dawn, I'd made my decision. If my son wanted to play house, I would let him. But this time, I'd set the rules. I opened my laptop and started drafting an email to Harbor Point Realty, the property management company that handled luxury rentals along the lake. The subject line was simple: inquiry, converting private home to short-term rental property. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Nathan appeared in the doorway, hair messy, holding a cup of coffee. "You're up early," he said. "I couldn't sleep," I replied. "Too much on my mind." He grinned. "Thinking about finally slowing down?" I looked straight at him. "No," I said quietly. "I'm thinking about boundaries." He laughed, not realizing he'd just been warned. When he left the room, I finished the email, attached a few photos, and hit send. The hum of the computer sounded like the beginning of something new, sharp, precise, inevitable. As the sun rose over the lake, I felt that same cold calm settle in again. They thought they'd taken over my house. They didn't know they'd just stepped onto my chessboard. 3 days later, Nathan decided to throw a family celebration. He said it was to make memories, but it felt more like a declaration of ownership. He printed invitations, called it Collins Family Summer Kickoff, and even told the neighbors they were welcome to Nathan's Lake House. I smiled when I overheard him say that. Nathan's Lake House. It rolled off his tongue like a fantasy he was trying to make real. The morning of the party, I watched him pace around the deck, barking orders. "Avery, can you set up the drink station? Mom, could you stay out of the kitchen for a bit? We've got catering coming." I nodded politely, even though I was the one who had called the catering company. What Nathan didn't know was that I'd upgraded everything. Champagne from France, seafood flown in overnight, live music by a local trio that charged more per hour than his monthly rent. When the delivery truck arrived, Nathan greeted the staff with a wide grin. "Hey there, right this way," he said, puffing out his chest. "I'm the homeowner." The chef turned to me for confirmation. I raised an eyebrow and said, "Yes, he's hosting today. Please make sure all the invoices go directly to him." Nathan didn't notice. He was too busy giving a speech about family unity and how he planned to keep this place in the Collins name for generations. By sunset, the party was in full swing. Music floated over the lake. Guests mingled, glasses clinking. I stayed by the edge of the deck, sipping wine, pretending to admire the view. In truth, I was watching Nathan, how he moved, how he loved being the center of attention. He lifted his glass. "To family," he shouted, and to new beginnings. Everyone cheered. For a moment, I almost pitied him. He didn't know the bill for his new beginning would arrive soon, itemized, verified, and legally binding. Later that night, after the guests left and the laughter faded, Nathan sank onto the couch with a satisfied sigh. "That went perfectly," he said. "Didn't it, Mom?" "Flawlessly," I replied. "You really took charge." He grinned, oblivious. "You think Dad would have been proud?" "Perhaps," I said softly. "But I'm not sure he'd recognize the man you're becoming." Nathan frowned, sensing something in my tone but too tired to chase it. He went to bed early, leaving empty bottles and crumpled napkins across the table. The next morning, he found a thick envelope on the counter. Inside was a neatly printed invoice from Bayview Catering for $17,182.35. At the bottom, in black ink, it read, "Billing contact, Mr. Nathan Collins, host." His voice boomed down the hallway. "Mom, what the hell is this?" I stepped out of my study, calm as the lake outside. "Looks like the catering invoice," I said. "They sent it to the host." "I didn't order this much food. You went overboard," he shouted. I met his eyes. "You were the one giving speeches." "Nathan, I assumed you wanted everything perfect for your guests." He sputtered, waving the paper. "You think this is funny?" "No," I said. "I think it's expensive." For a moment, he was speechless. The silence that followed was heavy, almost tangible. I could see the calculation flicker in his eyes, the realization that his performance had just cost him more than he could afford. I turned back toward my office. "You might want to pay that soon," I said. "Late fees are brutal these days." Behind me, I heard him curse under his breath. That was the sound I'd been waiting for, not rage, but recognition. The first crack in his illusion of control. That night, he stayed up late on his laptop, pacing between rooms, whispering to Avery. I pretended not to notice, but I knew exactly what he was doing. He was searching for a way to undo what had already begun. Out on the porch, I watched the moon shimmer over the lake again. The same moon, the same silence, but it felt different now. The balance was shifting, almost imperceptibly, in my favor. He thought the party had been a triumph. He didn't realize it was just the first move of my endgame. 2 days after the party, I noticed Nathan had grown unusually quiet. He spent hours on his laptop, door shut, voice low. Avery's mother had left, but her presence lingered, her perfume, her opinions, her fingerprints on my silverware. I pretended not to notice the whispered phone calls. I knew that silence wasn't guilt, it was calculation. That evening, while cleaning up the kitchen, I found a crumpled printout in the trash. It was an email draft to a real estate agent interested in listing my lake property. Owner, Nathan Collins. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then I laughed, quietly, the kind of laugh that comes when fury finally turns into clarity. I didn't confront him. Instead, I made my own call. My attorney, Ms. Diane Keller, answered on the second ring. "Margaret, I was just thinking about you," she said. "Good," I replied. "I might need you sooner than expected." The next morning, while Nathan was out buying groceries, a black SUV pulled up. 2 men in navy jackets stepped out, Harbor Point Realty's verification team. I'd asked them to conduct a surprise audit on the property listing. When Nathan returned, they were standing in the driveway with clipboards. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice pitching high. "Routine verification," I said, sipping coffee from the porch. They said the property was listed for sale. Apparently, the owner needs to confirm details in person. His face turned pale. It's just a misunderstanding." I said. "You should be careful. Pretending to own property you don't actually own? That's a serious thing in this state." He glared at me, jaw tight. "You set this up." I smiled. "I didn't have to. The truth has a way of finding people." That night, the air in the house felt thick, like static before a storm. I could hear Avery crying behind their bedroom door and Nathan pacing like a caged animal. The following morning, I woke to find my phone flooded with messages. My mailbox, too, a thick envelope marked "Confidential, Adult Protective Services." He'd reported me. The letter said a concerned family member believed I was mentally unfit to manage my finances and might be under undue stress. They'd scheduled a welfare check. When the social workers arrived, I greeted them in pressed slacks and a silk blouse, tea already steeping. My desk was neatly organized, my bills paid, my LLC paperwork framed on the wall. The younger woman looked around, impressed. "Mrs. Collins, everything here looks very much in order." "Thank you," I said. "Would you like to see my last quarterly report?" She blinked. "That won't be necessary." They left 20 minutes later, apologizing for the inconvenience. Nathan avoided me all afternoon. He must have known the report came back clean. When he finally emerged from his room, his voice was low. "You think you're smarter than me, don't you?" I met his eyes. "No," I said softly. "I just think ahead." He turned away, muttering, "You're impossible." As he walked down the hallway, I called after him. "Nathan?" He stopped. "Thank you," I said. "You just proved I'm perfectly sane." For the first time in weeks, he didn't have a comeback. That night, I sat by the window, notebook open, pen steady. I began listing every incident, every word, every threat, every reckless move, not for revenge anymore, but for documentation. I wasn't just defending a house. I was defending the part of myself that refused to be erased. The lake was calm again, the same way it always was after a storm passed. But something in me had changed. I'd stopped playing defense. He thought he could win by force. I was about to teach him what real control looked like. The call from my attorney came 2 days later. "Margaret," she said, "your son asked for a meeting. He wants to settle things privately." I could hear the hesitation in her voice, the same tone she used when a client was walking into a storm and didn't know it yet. "Set it up," I said. "I'm ready." The next morning, the sky over the lake was gray, heavy with rain. It matched the air inside me, calm, cold, certain. I dressed simply a navy dress, pearls, and my late husband's watch. I wasn't going to a fight. I was going to a reckoning. Nathan was already at the law office when I arrived. He looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from realizing your version of the story no longer controls the narrative. "Mom," he started, standing up too fast. "This has gotten out of hand." I took the seat across from him. "Yes," I said, "it has." Diane opened a folder and slid several documents across the table. "We'll start with ownership verification," she said. "Margaret, as sole member of Collins Property LLC, holds complete legal rights to the house and all its assets. Any attempt to sell, transfer, or claim ownership without her written consent is considered fraudulent." Nathan's jaw clenched. "I didn't mean to sell it. I was just exploring options." "Options that involved forging documents?" I asked quietly. "Or calling Adult Protective Services to claim I was losing my mind?" He froze. "You found out about that?" "Of course I did," I said. "You left the file open on your laptop." His shoulders slumped. "Mom, I was trying to protect you." "From what?" I interrupted. "From independence? From being free?" He stared down at his hands, silent. I leaned forward. "You grew up watching your father control everything, our money, our time, even what I wore. I thought I raised you differently. But you inherited his fear, Nathan. The fear of women who don't need saving. His eyes flickered, a flash of something between shame and defiance. You're twisting this. I just wanted to make sure you were taken care of. I am taken care of, I said, by myself. And that's what you can't stand. The room went still. Even Diane looked down, pretending to shuffle papers. After a long silence, I stood. From this moment on, Nathan, I'm setting boundaries you can't cross. You will not enter my property without permission. You will not contact my tenants or my management company. You will not speak for me again. He looked up, his voice cracking. So that's it? You're cutting me out? I hesitated, then said softly, No, Nathan, you did that yourself. His face fell, the fight leaving him like air escaping a balloon. You really mean this? I nodded. I do. And someday. I hope you'll understand it's not anger. It's self-respect. When the meeting ended, I walked out first. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets shining under the pale morning light. For years, I'd let guilt blur the line between love and control. That morning, the line was finally clean. I turned back once through the glass door. Nathan was still sitting there, head in his hands. For a brief second, I almost felt sorry for him. But pity is just another form of surrender. And I was done surrendering. As I stepped into the sunlight, I thought of the house by the lake, standing tall and still, mine again, in every sense that mattered. He thought the battle was over. For me, it was only peace, finally earned. The lake house was silent again, but it wasn't the kind of silence that presses on your chest. It was soft, almost musical, the kind that seeps into the walls after a storm and tells you everything has finally settled. For days after the meeting, I walked through each room slowly, as if reintroducing myself to the space. The scent of Avery's perfume still lingered faintly in the master bedroom. A child's drawing of a fish was stuck behind the refrigerator. There was even a single sock wedged between the couch cushions, tiny remnants of chaos. I didn't rush to erase them. I wanted to see what remained after they were gone. It reminded me that peace isn't about having nothing left. It's about choosing what you keep. When I finally decided to rent the house through Harbor Point, I didn't feel regret. I felt purpose. I furnished each room myself, cleaned the windows until they caught the sunlight just right, and planted fresh lavender by the front steps. Every small act was a declaration. This is mine, and I will decide who walks through this door. The first guests were a retired couple from Ohio celebrating their 42nd anniversary. They arrived with matching windbreakers and an old golden retriever that slept by the fire. I watched them from the porch, laughing together as they unloaded their car. They looked like what I used to imagine my old age would be. Quiet, steady, uncomplicated. When they left a week later, I found a handwritten note folded under the sugar bowl. "Thank you for sharing your peace with us," it said. I smiled and tucked it into my journal. Peace. The word used to sound like surrender, like something passive. Now I understood it differently. It was work. Constant, deliberate work. Nathan hasn't called since that morning in Diane's office. Sometimes I wonder if he drives by the lake, if he ever slows down long enough to see the lights flickering in the windows at night. Maybe he tells himself it doesn't matter anymore. Maybe that's his way of surviving it. I don't hate him. That surprises me. Anger fades when you finally stop needing an apology. What's left is clarity, and a quiet kind of mourning for what could have been. Last month, I took part of the rental income and started a small scholarship in his children's names. I didn't tell him. Love doesn't always have to announce itself. Sometimes it just needs to exist quietly, without expectation. Now, every morning, I sit on the deck with my coffee and watch the sun climb over the lake. The light moves slow, golden and certain, like time finally choosing mercy. The waves touch the shore, one after another, steady and endless. I used to think happiness was something other people could give you, but it isn't. It's the peace you protect when no one's watching, the boundary you draw and never cross again. Tonight, I'll lock the doors, turn off the lights, and let the house breathe. The lake will whisper against the shore, and for the first time in my life, I won't be afraid of the silence, because the silence, now, finally belongs to me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.